Welcome to Spark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl's on fire. Today, we're sitting down with a true visionary who isn't just talking about aging well. She's redefining what it looks like to live radiantly at every stage. Linda McIver is a board-certified family nurse practitioner, a diplomat from the American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioners, and the founder of ÂgeBlu, Atlanta's premier longevity and wellness clinic. With nearly 3 decades in healthcare, she's pioneering a new standard in wellness, one that blends traditional care with the cutting edge of functional and longevity medicine. And she's here to remind us that aging out loud is the new power move. ICU nurse to concierge medicine innovator, she has built visionary practices rooted in the belief that getting older shouldn't mean fading out, but burning brighter. Linda McIver's journey is a true testament to passion meeting purpose. Linda, thank you so much for being here. It is truly an honor. Like I said, I am a testament to, I have never felt better from going to your clinics. You are the best practitioner and so wise. And I just want to say thank you, cheers, and congratulations for not only all of your success, but your success in making us feel healthy and balanced and present and vital. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Sonya. It's a pleasure.
So this first segment is really what we like to call Roots and Rise. And every transformative leader, such as yourself, there's an early spark that kind of starts it all. And so what was your early spark? What brought you into this journey of treating people and helping them not only age correctly and well, but, age beautifully and functional medicine?
So my mother died when she was 49 years old and I was 16. And she was in a battle with cancer for about 6 years, and she lost. And I was an only child. My father and I aren't close. And when you become a mother, you really start to think of everything. And so I studied nursing in college and undergrad. And I think I was just a natural caretaker because I was caring for my mother. But then when you become a mother, it really becomes real. It's like, how can I be my best for these little people?
Right.
And so that's kind of really what pushed me more into longevity. And my mom was a healthy, beautiful, vibrant woman. And so it's like, what leads you into functional medicine is why. What's the root cause?
Right.
And so that's when you just want to start peeling back the layers and figuring it out. So that's really what started me on this path. And here I am.
That's such a young age. It's very traumatic. Obviously that did have a huge impact on your entire life.
Yeah.
How long were you a nurse?
So I was a nurse. I worked regularly full-time, probably from age 21 to about 25, 26.
Okay.
So and then I had my first baby at 26. So
oh, wow.
I know.
And then you went back to school after that?
I went back to school after I was divorced. So I was a single mom. I was working full-time at Atlanta Medical Center, which used to be Georgia Baptist, where I used to work, which is, closed now. But so I was working in the ICU. I was doing 2 shifts there and working in the recovery room, taking calls, so at night. And then I went to Kennesaw State. They had an accelerated master's program. And it was 4 nurses that were working and that had a lot of experience. So, and I there was a lapse where I did not work in the ICU when my kids were young. So probably for about 8 years, 10 years. So I just kind of had to get back in the game, started back in the hospital and did this program in 18 months. And I'm not quite sure how I survived during that time. And but my kids were always very encouraging of me, and they've just always kind of been, supportive of their mom, which is very touching. And so we would just all sit down and do our homework together. And so we got through that time and started working a little bit in a traditional practice, and quickly realized this wasn't for me. Having to see a patient every 10 minutes in order to, make the insurance quotas so that the practice gets paid. It just wasn't enough time to do what I wanted to do. Easy to sit there and write prescriptions one after the other. But as far as understanding, well, why is there high blood pressure? Why do you have high cholesterol, diabetes, precancerous cells, whatever it is, these things that you just kind of come see in the door that come in the door in a family practice or an urgent care. I did a lot of urgent care too. It was just there's so much more to this than just seeing patients quickly and writing the prescriptions. It's just not the model that was for me.
Right. No, that's very bold. And also going back to school when you're raising kids by yourself, that was also very hard. And then how long until you founded, your first was 2U Medical, which is just rebranded to ÂgeBlu.
Yes, a modern rendition of the old-fashioned house call.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I was telling you a little bit before, actually, that's how I came to your practice, was a house call right during COVID. And it was wonderful. I had an actual nurse that came out, spent time with me, got my IV, got everything taken care of. And you don't have that very much. And it was, especially someone as busy as me, having the ability to have someone on the weekends or on a house call. I mean, it's
the convenience.
That's very inventive. There wasn't any place like that in Atlanta, really.
Well, it's it wasn't really. I felt like I was kind of reinventing the wheel because historically that's how doctors worked, house calls,
right?
Especially country doctors. They were. So to me, it wasn't anything new and innovating. It was just let's kind of get back to basic, and let's just treat people the way we want to treat people and be able to have an hour with them, 2 hours, whatever it takes. And truth be told, you don't have much of an overhead when you're doing house calls.
Right.
So, you can have a very small studio office space to base from. And so that part worked for me. Since, self-funded.
Yeah.
So it was a very simple concept.
But it was a good
just
concept.
Trying to bring it back. So
it was a good concept.
And
then you had to go and become a diplomat for the American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioners. Tell me about that and what that involves. I know it's a lot of continuous education, right?
Right. So it's a fellowship through the Academy of Anti-Aging and Aesthetic Medicine, A4M for short. And it took me about 3 years to get through it, since I was working and parenting and, trying to do a few things. But it's, the modules were very enriching, and it was good to meet people that were of like mind. And then you take a big board exam, and that went well, thank God. So it was a good experience. I think growing up in Southern California, I always had, my parents were kind of like these fruit and nut people in a way. So I just was always exposed to a lot of healthy practices and vitamins, and my dad ate steamed vegetables for breakfast. Not many people do that.
Yeah.
So I had that those were early influences for me. And so it just felt so natural to go into this root cause, down this root cause path of functional medicine. And then, treating supplements prescriptively. I mean, I write prescriptions every day, but I also use my natural pharmacy. I use peptides as part of my pharmacy, IV therapy, practices. So it just kind of expands, what's in your little bag. that you can give people. So.
Exactly. And that's one of the things. And also you have your own vitamin supplement line with ÂgeBlu, tons of them. It's hard to take all of those pills, but they do make you healthier. But one of the things I find that was also so unique about your practice, and I think it is more the functional medicine, is getting blood work. You test everything, right? It's not just, your counts and stuff. It's like your mineral deficiencies and all of that stuff. So yeah.
It's important to have that as a roadmap. So, an example of that, someone coming in with thinning hair. Well, why is it thinning? Are you nutrient deficient? Are you, is your thyroid not functioning well? Are you being thrown into menopause sooner than you thought you were? Or, it's just trying to find out what's going on. Is it autoimmune? So, so that's where the labs are such a roadmap and a guide. That allows you to treat supplements prescriptively. So that's the whole reason.
And so let's talk a little bit about like the peptides and also to that early journey, like what you learned when you kind of went back to school, went into more the functional medicine side instead of just the traditional side. What did that open up to you as far as your practice?
It opened up more time to spend with my patients. I've always, having worked for a year in a insurance-based model, again, that limited amount of time with someone who's, trying to figure something out just doesn't work. So I've always, 2U Medical was always cash pay. ÂgeBlu is cash pay. It's just, it's a more gratifying way to practice. It just allows you to spend the time and tailor a true wellness plan for someone. And it doesn't mean that you stop taking the antidepressant or the thyroid medicine or whatever it is. I mean, you still probably need those things. If you want to wean off an ADHD med or an antidepressant, you can do it, absolutely, but you will do it easier if your body's nutrients are optimized. And, it's a careful taper. It's knowing how natural supplements or substances work with prescribed substances as well. So that's kind of our wheelhouse. It's our job to know how these interact.
Right.
So,
No, I think all of your practitioners at your clinic really always understand that, and I think it's so important because I don't like taking medicines, and I know a lot of people. That's where I think that you're going to have a symptom from anything that you take, right? So how do you have a whole wellness? And I think that comes with nutrition as well and lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about like the shift in COVID. How that affected your journey. And we have something in common. We both turned 50 in COVID. And I don't mind telling people my age because, like I said, we're aging with power.
That's right. That's right.
So how did COVID affect your journey and your practice and, what you were able to provide?
Yeah. Well, it was, a scary time, an unknown time. We were literally just trying to meet the needs of the people, in Atlanta, outside Atlanta. We were doing, the film industry has always been a very large client of ours. And so we were, FaceTiming with people in Los Angeles, New York, Austin, all over, just trying to help people. And we were all working just crazy hours, trying to stay abreast of the information. I had people just feeding the information all day long because people would ask these questions. They want to know the latest from the CDC. And so, it was, I feel like, we didn't have any time to get sick. We didn't have any time to be scared. We were just doing. And it went well. It went well. We helped a lot of people. And we were grateful for the opportunity. And it really kind of let us, about that time, I had finished my peptide certification. And boy, did we dive into those and use those because they were saving people, especially thymosin alpha-1, a very basic, safe peptide. really not contraindicated for anyone. And we had some geriatric patients contract COVID from, grandkids or family members, helpers. We didn't have to send one to the hospital.
Wow.
We were able to order in-home oxygen. We were able to monitor them. We were giving them TA1. We were, doing in-home IV, vitamin boosters, things of that nature. And so that was a real, we felt really fortunate that we had these 80 plus, this little 80 plus population with COVID, and we didn't send one.
That's amazing.
So we were grateful for that. But my team just crushed it. They worked so hard. I have an incredible team, as you know. Your daughter's on it.
Yes.
We're
and
so
she couldn't be
grateful for
happier.
her.
I mean, she learns so much from your practice, and especially, like I said, with the peptides. And we'll talk also too about the human regenerator. But I mean, just the overall wellness and holistic body. I mean, I know, like I said, I've never felt better, and I think I owe it all to coming out to your practice, and it's really wonderful. With your studies and all that you learned with the peptides and with everything else, is there anything that's kind of gone back to your original spark that started you in healthcare with, where you could figure out, I guess it's how it affected your mother and how you can prevent it from happening to you?
Yes, for sure. We have access to some great testing. My mother died of ovarian cancer. My paternal grandmother also died of ovarian cancer. So, I knew that there was genetic testing out there, but I was too scared to look for it, to seek it out, to know what the results would be. So it took me probably about 8 years to wrap my head around getting the genetic test done for myself. And we have a wonderful lab we work with that looks at cancer genes, cardiovascular genes, kind of like the big killers out there. And so I did that. It's actually very affordable testing. You do it once because it's your genes, which don't change. And I had no cancer genes. And that was very tears of joy moment. So I was so grateful. And then time goes on and you read more, you learn more, and you realize that only 10 to 20% of all cancers are genetic.
Wow.
The rest is usually toxic burden coupled with stress. And so that's why detox is my first principle of longevity. I'm very passionate about just ongoing detoxification. So, and that can mean different things for different people. Some people detox better than others, and that's very genetic too. It's very genetically dictated, and there are panels for that.
Really?
Yeah. So genomic testing is something that I love. It's just so insightful.
Yeah, actually, that test is very scary. It's scary but good. I did it on recommendation when I went there, because everybody in my family has died of cancer. So it's very prevalent in our side. And when I got the test, and then it was waiting for the results, I was like, wait, why did I get that test done? Now I'm scared, but then I also came back without any genes for it. So I was very fortunate with that side. So, but it is good. It's good to know so that you can know how to prevent, something from happening in the future, because you have so many people to care for, and you've got to make sure that you're taking time for yourself, and getting all that knowledge, I think, is super important. So, but thank you for that. And I'm glad that you're continuing to study for all of us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and my duty.
Yes. Linda, I mean, what you have built has been amazing. I mean, like I said, you have your own supplement lines, you have your own practice that is thriving. You pretty much take care of most of the film industry in Atlanta, which is relatively large as well. But this section we want to talk about is kind of the burn. How did you get through those challenges? Being a single mother, raising your kids, starting a business. What were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's the balance, and that as a working mom, it's constantly the balance. We're in search of it, and we never can quite seem to find it. But having your priorities straight, kids always number one. And then within the business, there's all these avenues, but patients are number one, not losing sight of that. I never wanted to be like a big social media influencer. It wasn't right for me. I don't knock those that are, but for me, I couldn't keep the focus on my patients if I was trying to be all of that. It's not natural for me. Like I love sitting here talking to you. I could do this more, but I'm never going to be one filming myself or to share information that just doesn't feel right to me.
Right.
And then, just the challenge of a growing, just managing all the moving parts of being captain of the ship of this practice, just making sure you can make ends meet. How hard does everyone have to work before you have enough of a nest egg to hire the next person? And it's always this squeeze on everybody around you, and of course you. And then it's like, okay, I found someone, we can pay her or pay him,
Yeah.
So that's.
But that comes with challenges too, having employees, because you're still the captain.
Sure does. Yeah. And one thing that I just kind of really started to focus on, because, people come and go, and I've had some really good people that I've stayed friends with, or people leave to try to, start their own thing. And it hurts a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But for about the last really 8 years, I've made it my focus that I really want anyone that works, I always say with me instead of for me, anyone that works with me to love coming to work. I want you to love your job. If you love your job, you're not looking around. You're paying people competitively. They're enjoying benefits of working with you. And we have a few that people do enjoy. And I like to take care of my people. That's how it should be. And I have a great group. They've just, each one of them has like this little celebrity following, in addition to just people in the Buckhead community and the Atlanta community that love them. And it's like each one is like their own little rock star. And it's so fun to watch. And they bring it every day. And I'm so grateful.
Well, I think, and I talk a lot about this as well, because with my business is like, to me, the most important thing is culture. And I think you've created that culture. You have a single focus, which is your care for your patients, which is why you're not an insurance model, why you're take that time. That's what you want to do. You're continuously learning. And I think that, and then you've built a beautiful new practice. Your renovations are fabulous, but it's also very serene. I think that you have a very, very defined aesthetic, and you've created that environment where people are happy when they come to work, right? And they grow. Yeah. So how are you feeling, or with your challenges? What are some of the, I guess, the way you get through that each day? Because I'm sure you have so much pressure on you.
Yeah.
What's some advice that you can give someone else that has maybe not even a tenth of your pressure, how they can get through the day and overcome those challenges? What are some of your secrets?
Well, I think number one, do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to email someone back before your head hits the pillow, like, don't make that promise if you can't keep it. But if you say it, do it, Mm-hmm. So, that's the biggest thing, because that's how you gain the trust of your patients, the people you work with. So that's a big one. And then just keep the perspective, have the passion. Like, if you feel like you're losing the passion, it is time to study something else within your field. Like, learn another aspect of it. How do you set yourself apart from the others? Stay competitive out there. Just make sure that you're constantly challenging yourself. Like, if you're bored and you're an entrepreneur and you built something, or you're trying to build something, but you feel it's mundane, you need to work more. You need to figure it out, how to study something new, within that. So
I think you are constantly evolving. Like I said, since I've been a patient, I've seen it change names, change locations, get a brand new, fresh restart, and with all this new innovations that you've brought into it. So you are constantly changing, which I think is maybe the key.
And the key, 2U Medical is still in existence. So I have 2 partners, 2 wonderful MD partners in that business or practice. And so the film industry all comes through 2U Medical, because one of my partners, Bobby Kaufman, was the movie doc in town for years, and his father before him. So,
oh, wow.
So all of that is 2U Medical. And then sometimes people reach out directly and say, hey, I'm in Atlanta. I just, wrapped a film and feeling run down. What do you have for me? And then, then they come in and we'll do what we do. So, so it just kind of, they're synergistic at this point. So.
Did you ever have a time period in all of this that you felt burned out?
Oh, yeah. More than once. I remember early on, I call it my days of being a one-armed paper hanger, where you're just trying to do it all. And I remember sitting down with my kids at dinner, and I was just so tired, and I had to go do a house call after dinner. I was like, you know what, you guys, I think I'm just going to call this and just, go do shift work in an ER or somewhere. Just I just don't think I can do this anymore. I'm not here with you guys. And they were like, no, you built this, Mom. You have to keep going. You have to, keep working at it. We love you. You cannot quit. They would not let me quit.
That's amazing.
And I got 2 really great kids. So, and now a great husband and great stepkids, and they're just all, supportive. And because I still have those moments where I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm spread so thin. And I just feel so fortunate, and I don't take for granted for 1 second my family that supports my efforts in what I do. So
I think purpose and family and support, right?
Yeah.
Purpose and
definitely.
support. And I think you give that support back to others. That's why you have, your staff that has been there for so long. Yes, some do leave, but I know I've been going to Tessa since I've started going there. And, so you have some great
awesome.
Practitioners.
I do. I really do. All that said, have I spent 3 days in bed binging a show? Yes, I have. I am human. So,
what's your favorite show to binge?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've only binged 2 in the last, say, 5-6 years, and one was Succession, which
I love that one.
It was just so raw and took you out of your everyday. And so, so I did binge Succession. And then more recently I binged Nobody Wants This. That was just so good. Cute and made me laugh, and I loved it. So
you have to have some of those guilty pleasures. I mean, you have a very, very substantial life. You have kids, you have stepkids, you have a husband, you have a business, you have multiple businesses, actually. I mean, you got to take care of yourself sometimes to avoid the burnout. And sometimes that can be binge watching a show.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But with everything that you've walked through, like I said, I can't imagine the challenges of getting to where you are in your career, especially at first as a single mom. That's very commendable that you did keep up with it. And it's amazing hearing with your kids that they were the one that kept you through that.
They did.
But one of the things I want to talk mostly about is on the aging side. I mean, to me, I think aging is a gift, right? Doesn't mean getting old, right? Mm-hmm. So now we've kind of talked a little bit about the burn. I want to kind of transition to kind of some advice on how you've gotten through all of it and get you to answer the burning question. So what you built at ÂgeBlu and focusing on functional and longevity and everything, it's not just breaking away from traditional medicine. It's really changing traditional mindsets. And especially when it comes to aging, because in today's society, there's still so much stigma for a woman with aging, right? We feel like our beauty dims, or, we're not as relevant anymore, and our energy fades. But I think that narrative's cracking. I mean, especially with like menopause is having a moment, which I'm very excited about, because there's not been enough studies on women's health. True. It's amazing.
So true.
But I think women are really kind of reclaiming their vitality now, right? And 50 is, I don't even want to put a label on 50 as a new 30. I think that those labels are silly. 50 is just 50, right?
Yeah.
But I guess what my question is can we truly control our ageless journey, or are we just optimizing what's inevitable? Are we controlling our aging and being vital and relevant all throughout, or is it just like a charade, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you get older, there are physiological things that happen to a body. And it's kind of individual. Some people are like me, where they're just focused on it and they absolutely don't want to do it. They're here to be the best they can be for as long as possible. And I take care of a lot of biohackers, a lot of people who've just, they're very well read. They're up on the latest. They teach me some things. And then there are people who just, they just want to feel good. They, whatever comes. They don't care about anything cosmetic. And it's really just finding out what people want. Everybody's different. And, at ÂgeBlu, we're not here to sell you a longevity plan. People come in the door for different reasons, and at different ages, at different times in life. Young people we see too. So yeah, it's always just interesting to, be able to interview a patient. What are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 20 years? And that's a very interesting question to ask people in their 50s or even 60s, who are still have a good, golf game, who still are running their companies, but the thought of retirement's there, but they're not sure. It comes up with partners. And so I always pose the question, where do you see yourself in 20 years? Are you still swinging the golf club like you want to swing it? And, of course, everyone says yes to that. They want that. But, and then the whole question of retirement, people are working longer. It throws into this whole economic question mark. Are we we don't want to outlive our money, So it's like there's just so many factors to think about. So I like to plant those seeds for people to just kind of spend some time with. So
what would you say to the critics that think that a lot of the anti-aging is just like high-end vanity? Is it more than that?
It is, especially for, people who want to be here for their children, grandchildren, people who have just a zest and a zeal for life, and they're high on life. They just want to keep going. That said, feeling good and looking good go hand in hand. So, and I always tell people, nothing is a hard sell. So if you're on the fence about doing a certain therapy, whether it's longevity, cosmetic, nothing's a hard sell at all. If you want me to be completely honest, I will be. If you want to know, like, what's the, different options for you with what price tags attached to it, we're very transparent with pricing. We're going to tell you what anything costs before you walk out the door. We don't like surprises. I don't like surprises like that, so I assume other people don't.
Right.
But it's meeting people where they are, and a lot, for instance, like Botox has been studied for depression. You want to talk about a great pick-me-up? Do Botox and
really,
yeah, just a little neurotoxin takes you far. So, usually people, will kind of be against, women mostly will be against something if you try to ease symptoms of menopause and start a little bioidentical hormone therapy. And then, maybe a year later they think, oh, is there anything you can do to like soften the 11 so I don't like angry all the time? Or so it's just, building trust, meeting people where they are, giving them some things to think about, and taking a personalized approach.
Yeah.
So
I'd never heard that about Botox. That's really interesting. So we've had a lot of conversations about, especially with this generation, self-confidence and depression. And, I think because of social media, right? Like there's a lot more pressure put on people, but there's nothing wrong with looking good and feeling good, right? You should be
there's
both,
not.
you know?
Yeah. If you want both, you can have both.
So, the anti-aging industry is $1 billion industry.
Trillion.
Trillion. Okay, that would make sense. But functional medicine is still considered an alternative. Why?
Well, that's changing. Everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of traditional providers are acknowledging that the model is broken. And a lot of patients who have been in a traditional model for so long, by the time they're in their 40s, 50s, they feel failed by it. And I will see that on patient questionnaires, looking for a provider to help me live my best life, not just write prescriptions or something to that effect. I mean, people are putting this in writing.
Yeah.
And men, women, I mean, it's just even young people that are having physical symptoms that are just being told they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. People aren't fine, or it's not good enough anymore. And I kind of always go back to during COVID, when President Trump had COVID, and on the news, there was a list of what he was taking, and there were supplements on that list. And no matter what your political views are, I was like applauding. I was so happy to see he had vitamin C, vitamin D, melatonin. I think there was even quercetin on that list. So that was a happy moment for me to be able to see that, in addition to antiviral and then eventually monoclonal antibodies. And so that was a nod, I thought, to functional medicine. And I think it's being much more accepted. It's providers who are traditionally trained, but have just said, let's look a step further. We're using LabCorp and Quest. We have our fancy functional medicine labs too. But we're not doing hair analysis. We're not doing muscle testing. And I don't knock those things at all. I'm not educated in how to do those. I'm not educated in homeopathy. But I think there's something to it. But basically, if someone comes to our practice for a workup, and then they go off to Mayo Clinic or Emory Executive Health or wherever, the provider that they will see there will be able to take what we've done and recognize what it is and acknowledge it, use it as a baseline. And we interface with those docs in different institutions like that. So it's not like it's not like a completely foreign language.
Right.
And the doctors that are more traditional, providers that are more traditional, if they tend to be more open these days. I have doctors that ask me questions all the time, or ask me, how'd you learn about that? Or what's a resource for that? And I have physicians who establish care with me, and that's an honor. I'm grateful for that. And it's fun to take this collaborative approach. It's an exciting time. So back, long story short, there's a shift going on.
Well, I think there definitely is. And it's great. And like I said, I take very few medicines. I love my IV therapies, peptides. If I'm sick, I've gotten through some really bad colds and stuff like that with, some of the treatments. And, like I said, understanding what nutrients I'm deficient on, I think is also extremely important to live your best life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about, because you also have some very cutting edge technology and that helps. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the human regenerator machine, because that is super exciting. Special one. Yes.
Yeah. So it's cold atmospheric plasma, and it's generated through this German engineered system in the base of, it's basically a bed. So you're laying flat and you're not enclosed in anything, but it produces this ionized gas that permeates the body. And in doing so, it changes the electrical field. So it causes this big electron activation in the body. So electrons, protons, positive electrons, negative. Electrons are more alkaline. And when you have a more alkaline environment, inflammation can't thrive, infections can't thrive, cancer can't thrive, and processes can be enhanced, good processes like regeneration. So how it works depends on what you need. So the gas is just there and it permeates the body, and people feel good on it. Some people think, oh, I didn't feel anything. It was relaxing. But oftentimes the next morning they say they jumped out of bed, or I've heard from a handful of patients that they feel their mood is better. And I have a psychiatrist that I work with a lot, and she's heard it too. She refers patients and she enjoys the using it, and she's like, this is like making a difference in people's mood. So that's very interesting. Yeah. I didn't expect that. But there's research being done on this. So it just came to the US, and we were really grateful to get the first one. I pursued it really hard once I experienced it. Few trips over to London. First experienced it in Mexico, few trips to London. I sent 25 patients to London to use this therapy. And I really got their attention and kind of befriended them. And they're awesome people, by the way. And they were just like, I started hearing from patients. They would come back and tell me, well, Dom and Joe said you're getting the first one. And I was like, oh my gosh. I called them and I'm like, am I really getting the first one? They said, yeah, as soon as we can get FDA clearance. And so there was a group in New York that was able to do that and jump through all the hoops, and here we are. So it timed out with the reopening of our office to get this very special modality. So we're just extremely grateful.
It really is amazing. I mean, I did get a chance to experience it. It is very relaxing, and I was trying to, and there's tons of research. I mean, it does a lot with people with like certain skin conditions or with cancer. Like a lot of people with cancer, especially ones recovering from it, have used it for regeneration. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because it's just going over you, but that makes sense when you talk about the alkaline thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. There are a lot of, it's excellent for dermatitis. So too, it's, I should have mentioned that one. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I was reading, there's a million different things on it. But
autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so like with like lupus and things like that, is that what that helps with?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So why do you think that, I mean, now that we're getting into this functional medicine where you actually have ways that make us feel more vital, what do you think is the resistance for some people to, I guess, go away from the traditional models and kind of embrace that they can age gracefully as well as be the best version of themselves?
I think it's human nature and change. Some people just don't want to change. Some people don't don't want to spend the money, which is fine. Again, nothing's ever a hard sell. We do accept health savings accounts. A lot of our patients use those. But it's interesting. Sometimes I'll have someone establish care and we spend a lot of time together, and they leave skeptical, and that's okay. It's interesting because a lot of them come back and say, I thought about things, I read up, I always suggest, I love to give my patients books, and then or suggest that they read certain books if I don't have them on my bookshelves. But if you just provide people with resources and just plant the seed of something new that makes them better, they usually come around. So there's not a ton of resistance. So,
right.
Yeah. And just not coming on too strong. We don't do that. And that's where functional medicine practices get a bad rap. I'll have patients that, will come in and say, oh, I established care here, and I left with a shopping bag full of supplements, and I took them for a week, and then I stopped because I couldn't remember why I was taking them, and it was just too much. And that's so sad to me. But, then how that plays out is when we do the lab review, I'll say, bring your bag of supplements. You spent money. Let's figure out what we can use and how to take it. And sometimes we cycle things in and out, so it's not 1 million pills a day. And so we try to meet people where they are, use what they have, use what you've already spent money on. And I'll have some people that will come to me or have a call with me just to say, I've been seeing so-and-so at another practice, and I'm just not sure. And sometimes at the end of that call, it's been such that I help them realize, that's a good provider. You just need to communicate how you're feeling. Don't switch to me for that reason. Talk to them. They're a good person. Some of them used to work for me, but it's number one above all, doing what's right for that person. So
right. I think that goes back to caring for your patients.
Yeah.
And you're right about communication. I think that's also another thing, is we don't communicate enough with our doctors and with our providers to help them help you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you still feel like aging is a shame with women, that they still feel that kind of, or do you feel like the ones that have come to your practice, they've kind of become more empowered?
Well, when people first come in the door, especially for women with menopause, it's, some women just sail through, which is great. A lot of women don't. They just feel beat up and wrung out by it. And that takes a toll on emotions. And, so there's Kleenex in my room for a reason, because we pull it out regularly. But women do feel so beaten down, and they're hard on themselves, and they don't feel beautiful anymore. They feel like their skin's sagging, they've gained weight, their hair's thinning, just all of these things that are really just kind of a symptom of menopause. Some are cancer survivors, and they're not necessarily candidates for hormone therapy. So then it's, what else you got, Linda? What else can you do for this person here who's suffering? And there are things.
I was going to say, what are the things? Because like I said, menopause is one of those, it's just now getting the recognition it's deserved. It's before, it's just been kind of like, okay, they forgot half the population, oh, well, just deal with it and go take a bubble bath and you'll be fine, but crazy. It's horrible for many women. So what are some of the things that you've learned?
Well, perimenopause is tricky. It is so tricky. So the definition of menopause is a year without a period. Sometimes women will be, 6-7 months down the road without a period, and they are having hot flashes. They're night sweats at night. They're not sleeping. They're snappy. Their relationship's not doing great. They're gaining weight. And so again, you get your roadmap, your labs, and perimenopause can almost be algorithmic. You must start low and go slow, but at the same time, you want to provide relief. So that's where I think, experience, instinct are very helpful for the provider treating the patient. And then just allowing them to communicate with you. And I tell all my perimenopausal patients, like, let me hear from you. Send me an email if you feel like you're holding water weight, you have breast tenderness, it's too much. We'll have to dial it back. You have to let me know and I'll tell you what to do. And so that's just one example. Some women, you just feel like you are pouring hormones in them, and to a point where it makes you a little uncomfortable and you're like, whoa, you got to come in for labs. There's something else going on. And that's what's interesting, with all the weight loss going on around us.
Right.
When you lose weight, your hormone therapy probably needs to be adjusted because estrogen is stored in fat. So if you lose weight and you start having hot flashes again, or these symptoms of menopause, brain fog, you name it, we need to make some adjustments.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, you usually need a little more.
Yeah.
So.
And there's just not ever been enough studies on this issue with women in general. And I think that, like I said, from what I've heard, people are going more towards functional medicine for treatments for menopause because their OBGYNs good for delivering babies, but not necessarily listening to the whole body, right?
Yeah.
And what they're going through.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see these GYN practices that are coming, well, some have been in existence for a while, but there's more that are focusing on just GYN. And I think that's very meaningful for women in perimenopause and postmenopause. And then there's Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who really, people will come in after reading her book and say it was so refreshing to read this. And she's done such a good job with just putting menopause out there and just presenting the data, the science, and, going toe to toe with those terrible studies that were done 25 years ago that just were, scared the bejeebers out of everyone.
Yes.
So, but she's done such a great job of being vocal about it. So, I applaud her.
And two things is, one, we don't have to suffer in silence. If we are going through perimenopause, menopause, we can go get help.
Yes.
And somebody will listen. And two, we do not have to get old to age. Age is, like I said, aging is a gift, right? We get wiser, we've had life experiences and all that, but that doesn't mean getting old. We can always live our best self. So that's kind of your answers, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
So you do so much to help others. Your whole life is built around helping others, I believe, and that's your purpose and your passion. But let's pull back the curtain, and what fuels Linda? How do you fan the flames to keep going every day?
Well, success fuels me for sure. Success meaning with my patients, really seeing some marked differences in people, and is huge positive feedback for me. And then just cocooning a little bit. I feel like my friends that haven't dropped me because I don't do a lot socially are my true friends, because I do tend to just kind of be quiet when I'm not working. I need that time to just kind of, regenerate my body and my mind. And so I love sauna and meditation and hyperbaric oxygen therapy and human regenerator. And, so I need those times. Self-care, I love a good massage, a good blow dry, different things like that just, say, hey, I'm going to stop and care for me for a moment. I think it's important for me and anyone in this business.
Do you set aside time every day or every morning where it's your own personal self-care?
I do. I always start my day with stretching and meditation and prayer and some breath work if I have extra time, which isn't often, but I do. I need that grounding time. So, and it's just, feels good to stretch and start the day with that. So just
No, I
gets your
think
mind in
that's,
the right place.
yeah,
So,
I mean, you have to. That's one of the other things that I think has come up with almost every woman that we've talked to has been kind of like the power of pause and
yeah,
quieting the
yeah,
noise, right?
absolutely. Totally.
And being back within yourself.
Yes.
Is there any
Absolutely.
particular story of one that really kept you moving without giving any HIPAA stuff away, but of somebody that you really helped, I guess, success in their life that really moved you forward or
Yeah.
fanned your flame?
Well, I think it's, when you have a patient who gets a bad diagnosis in spite of working together and happens for various reasons, and just kind of helping them navigate that. Sometimes, I'll even go to an appointment with an oncologist with a patient, or they'll get me on Zoom, or just something to show support, to help ask questions, to make sure everyone is understanding everything that's going on. And then seeing that person through, like they feel better, their cancer's gone, they're, okay, now we're on the quest of like, how do we keep it like this? And that's just huge. That's just extremely gratifying. I don't have many patients that end up getting a bad diagnosis. I can probably count them on one hand, but it's been very impactful for me to just be able to like help support that person. It's an honor to be able to help someone at that point, and then just see them come out on the other side, be better than ever, and kind of their willingness to network and to share, like, about another. If someone else is going through something similar, they'll say, yeah, give them my number, and Lyme disease is a big one. That's a big one that comes up a lot lately. And I will tell you that my Lyme patients are more than willing to talk to each other. And so, I always document that they've given me permission to share their information, and that it's just both parties are grateful, so.
Yeah. Well, I like that you find one time for yourself, but I also like that your success with someone else and helping them through their journey is like what helps fan your flame.
For sure. 100%.
What else? I assume also too, your kids are probably a huge
yes,
part of keeping you going, as you told me, their encouragement for you to keep going.
For sure. And family. My husband's really good about planning things for us when he's not working, and we try to be with each kid on their birthday or close to the time if they'll let us. So, but just having really good family time is definitely fueling for me.
So, Linda, your work doesn't just shift in health. It really it's touching so many different lives with all of your patients and with your message that you give and your vitality. What do you hope your legacy will be? And what can you say to the next generation of women or practitioners that are following behind you and what you're leading? What advice would you give them?
Well, I want to be remembered as someone who just really cared about her patients and really always tried to do the right thing for them at the right time. And I would say to other practitioners, that the best thing you can do is to listen to your patient. Know what questions to ask the right questions, do a deep dive, understand what they're telling you. Don't just look at the paper. So just really listen. It's not that hard. But a lot of people will tell me that their traditional provider doesn't listen. And I just find that hard to believe because we prioritize listening so much.
What about as an entrepreneur? There's a lot of women and it's a tough journey. What would you go back to say to that woman that was making that house call after dinner and, was ready to give it all up? What would you say to her now?
I think I would say, you got this, girl. Like you can do it. when you follow your passion, you just have to trust that you're in alignment with the big picture for you, what you're supposed to do in life. And that means that the people around you kind of rise up and do what they're supposed to do or support you in ways that you didn't expect. Like the fact that my preteens were telling me, you can't quit. Like that surprised me. I thought they would be like, okay, yeah, that's going to be better, Mom. Just do that, do work 3 12-hour shifts and then, yeah, that'll be better. They said the opposite. So that was just, that's an example of that, so, and kids are watching, they respect hard work, and they work hard. You're an example of that.
And they know that they can make it, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have confidence in yourself.
Exactly.
So passing the torch on to these brilliant children that you have, what advice do you want for them to always remember that will carry them through in their journey as they succeed?
To follow your passion. And it also at that point, everyone that's passionate hits points where they're questioning or they're just at a low or at a lull and they think, should I be doing something else? Not necessarily, and I see young people who want to, quit their job, do another job, just think they're kind of like looking for happiness. And it's like, wait, you got to look inside, you've done a 180 from your major and you're doing what you really thought you wanted to do. It's going well, but life ebbs and flows. Or, someone who studied what they're working in and they're very happy and, it's not gonna be rosy every day. And if you're feeling stagnant within what you thought was your passion, don't, change courses. If you were so passionate about it, just dive deeper. What else is there? What else can you learn before you reroute or jump ship or, exhaust every opportunity within what brought you to where you are?
Oh, that's what I think is you really are a testament to passion meeting purpose. Not only your passion for healthcare, but then your passion with really wanting to spend time with the patients. That really is kind of like it's foundation for everything that you've created since then and continue to create, which is really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next segment is my favorite sign, which is the fire round, which is just fun, easy, first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, you ready? All right. Go to ageless living hack in less than 5 minutes.
Cold plunge breath work.
Cold plunge breath work?
And doing breath work.
Either.
Okay. If you don't have a cold plunge handy, do breath work.
Cold plunges, they are good. They're
are
very cold.
In a short amount of time.
Yes. One product you swear by.
Vitamin C.
Biggest myth about aging.
That you have to age. No, it's never too late to get started. Like if people think it's too late, that's not true.
Right. And what is a superpower you wish you had and your leadership superpower?
Superpower that I wish I had was to be able to sleep no matter what's going on in life and to just get really good sleep scores no matter what. So I'm still working on that.
And what is your superpower, your leadership superpower, you think?
Empower your people, educate them well, and let them feel special. Let them, feel empowered, like they're really good at what they do.
Very good. And this we didn't get to go on too much of, but what is your favorite blue zone principle? Because I know you've researched the blue zones a lot.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Yes. Several come to mind, but I'm going to go with Ikigai, which is from the Okinawan culture, and that is to live your purpose.
Very good. I like that. Coffee, matcha, or smoothie?
Matcha.
And one thing you're unapologetically saying no to lately?
Less alcohol.
Perfect. You're fierce and fun and full of life. And you don't need alcohol for that. You've got enough vitality. All right. So before we wrap up, this is one thing that we ask everybody when they come on Spark Session is, Linda, what is your one spark, your one truth that gets you through life?
There's a solution to every problem.
That's very
There's
good.
always hope. Yeah, there's a solution.
That's very good. And it's also good that you're a healthcare provider and has that.
Thank you.
Because that means there's always hope as well,
Yes.
which is very true.
Yes.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining us today. You are just, your presence, you have a very purposeful presence. And I definitely see your passion for helping others. And I'm so glad that you went into what you went into to found your own practice and to have that as a resource for all of us. And you're living proof that like living agelessly it's not a luxury. It's something we can all do, you know, vitamins, supplements, understanding your health and living it. That's extremely important. And that's not something that is necessarily outrageously expensive either, right?
Exactly.
And being mindful.
It doesn't have to be.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us. And
thank you,
thank you for being our guest.
You inspire me. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning into Spark Sessions. Until next time, keep the fire burning.